Originally, that was the whole purpose, was to prepare the body physically so that you could sit in meditation with no pain, and so that you wouldn't be distracted by a sore lower back or stiff knees while you sat for, say, 30 minutes or longer to meditate. The people who think they're not flexible enough to do yoga are exactly the people that need to be doing yoga. You know, our bodies are built to move in such a wide range of motion, and even for people who are very active and strong and healthy, you just tend to go through the same motion patterns every day. Let's start with child's pose. Child's pose is considered the go-to resting pose in yoga, but if you're not comfortable and feel like you're resting in child's pose, then don't despair, because a lot of people do not find it comfortable at all. It's a tremendous stretch on the low back, on the quadriceps, down the front of the thighs, on the knees, for some people in the ankles. So to make it as comfortable as possible, you want to start with the knees wide, maybe even as wide as the mat, and then sitting the hips back toward the feet and just letting the head round down. And the forehead might touch the mat and it might not, and both ways are totally normal and both ways are fine. If the forehead doesn't go all the way to the mat, you can just use your arms to prop yourself up. Your hips might sink all the way back and touch your heels, or it might not. But again, both ways are normal and both ways are fine. We start on all fours with the hands right underneath the shoulders. When you're ready to go into down dog, you'll want to take the hands forward just a little bit, maybe like a full handprint in front of that. And then make sure the fingers are spread really wide and the palms stay down flat. You curl the toes under and lift the hips up toward the sky, letting the heels sink toward the floor. But a common misconception is that your heels have to touch the floor. But I've been doing yoga for almost 15 years and my heels still don't touch the floor. So don't worry if your heels don't touch the floor. That's not necessarily the goal. Basic seated twist. Starting seated however's comfortable. Most people can sit legs crisscross. So we start there and just sit up really tall, like you're trying to reach the crown of the head all the way up as tall as you can. It might even help to take a big inhale, sweep the arms up overhead, and as you exhale, gently twist around to your right, taking your right hand to the floor behind you and your left hand to your knee. Now remember, you can only crank yourself around into a twist so far with a rounded spine. So try to give a little more effort to sitting up tall first, and then you'll find room to move into the twist and it won't feel like you're having to crank yourself around. Wonderful pose, not only for balance, but for concentration and focus, because a big part of balancing is the concentration. So what you want to do is shift the weight, taking your time, no hurry, shifting the weight onto one foot. Let's say we're shifting the weight onto the right foot. So you're just light on the left toes. Turn the left knee out to the side so you get a little opening through the front of the left hip. Bring your hands together right in front of your heart, and this just reminds you to pull everything in toward the midline. So give a little push, the hands together, draw your navel back toward the spine. Let's do a basic back bend. Most of our daily activities take us into a forward bend. Even sitting is 90 degrees of flexion at the hips, which is quite a bit of a forward bend, but rarely do we get the opportunity to extend the hips or do a back bend, stretching the front side of the body. So for bridge pose, lying down on your back, you'd walk your heels in as close as they'll come toward your body, but keep your feet apart about hip distance, arms down by your sides. And then use the strength of your legs, push your feet into the floor and lift your hips up, like you're pushing your hip bones up toward the ceiling and shoulders back. And then just keep your head steady, looking up. You can always close your eyes and breathe and just keep engaging the legs, driving the feet firm into the floor, even like you're gonna make footprints in your mat. You're pushing so hard to drive the hips up. And if that feels good and you feel like your back could handle a little bit more, then you really lift the hips, lift the heart, and try to wiggle your arms underneath behind you, interlacing your fingers so you get a nice opening across the collarbones and the upper chest, exactly where most of us tend to hunch and constrict around the heart and the upper chest. Basically, your goal with your yoga practice is to get back to neutral.